Hi, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Trident Talks. I'm Josh, the CEO of Trident, and today I'm joined by Bryson, the CEO and founder of Scythe, and also of all things unicorns. Bryce, thanks for joining.
Glad to be here.
So, Bryce, do you want to start off, explain why you are wearing a unicorn hat, wherever it might be, and just kind of a bit of a background.
Why am I in full well, not full unicorn. You're getting what I call my summer corn, because one of the things about props and costumes that folks don't realize, and it's funny, the lesson I first learned with this was I went to the last DerbyCon party and I was wearing a full inflatable unicorn, and I got on stage with Vanilla Ice, and the drummer pierced my unicorn, and so the first time it ever got worn, that inflatable costume, it died. And it was also hot as hell. So I'm like sweating in this latex. So the temperature control and comfort and survivability of your costumes are key to being able to pull it off. But what's the origin? So when I worked in the intelligence community, my nickname was Grim. And when I got out in 2013 to start my own offensive consultancy by myself, Grim seemed like a pretty cool name. Bryson's consultancy seemed a little douchey. So that worked out. And the story of the unicorn ties into the birth of Scythe. So you're going to get both at the same time.
Yeah.
2 shots, 1 kill, or 1 shot, 2 kills. So 2016, Target came to me, and I love the story of Target because in 2013, when they were breached, that created the modern cybersecurity ecosystem we're in. I think a lot of folks don't realize how young our discipline is. I mean, 2000 is when firewalls became generally available. I know you have a background in Cisco firewalls. Well, before then, your network being different from my network wasn't really a thing. So that's the start 25 years ago, 12 years ago with Target. Organizations everywhere, the leadership were like, oh, this is what you nerds have been saying. Like, this is a real risk. It's not just technical wizardry. Like, this affects our business. We should do something about that. So I heard this story in 2016 where they've built a truly world-class security organization. And the top organizations get to have their own red teams. But to do effective red teaming, you need custom tooling. And so they came to us at Grim and they said, hey, could you build us effectively an alternative to Cobalt Strike? Because they were all over Cobalt Strike, and defenses attenuate to the tools. So they were good there, and they wanted custom tooling. And I was like, well, this is a good consulting gig because I'm gonna have to keep building you a new one as you burn it. What if I gave you a framework where you could build anything you wanted? Their eyes kind of popped up and like, you can do that? And I was like, I can do that. I have an MBA. I've read about this. This sounds like a product. I'd like to keep the IP. Can I do that? They said, yeah. And I spent 2 years co-developing it with them. And I realized I knew nothing about commercial software sales and development as a former national security guy. And that's where Ron Gula, Gula Tech, and then Dmitry Alperovich from CrowdStrike come in and helped me launch the company in 2018. Back to the unicorn. At Grim, we used to do an annual T-shirt contest for DEF CON. And in fact, I'm wearing the design, so this works perfectly.
What year is that? What year is that? Is that
like 2017, 18?
Old school. Okay, nice.
I came up with this idea because I thought it was really funny, the juxtaposition of death and cute. And the design just blew up. Everybody wanted it. It was really popular. And I was just like, oh, well, this is great. And the Grim logo was pretty cool. I don't think I have one of those right around, but you can see the Grim Reaper with it. And I'm like, well, how do I get lightning in a bottle twice? Scythe is boring. So Grim people, Scythe tool, but it's just a piece of wood and metal. People are into these unicorns. And that was where the design was born on the spot.
Okay. There you go. And people need to know it's a Monday that we're recording it, hence the low key props as opposed to a big inflatable that you've obviously had fixed since it's been popped by a drummer, right?
Now, Josh, I'm gonna actually put this on you because as a former Marine, you know we just make up everything on the spot, and so that's really the flavor of your show. I mean, what says Marine more than me holding up my T-shirt and little
fancy dress with pink unicorns, right? Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's just another birthday party for us. So tell us about so it's evolved into Scythe. By the way, I love the origin story. I didn't know that about Target and the kind of the co-development, and obviously it's two of the best investors and also advisors that you could ask for, right? Like that's insane. So what's the purpose of the business now though? Like breach attack simulation, you build it into a platform, you got your own IP, hence that's what the cyber vendor world is. Like what are you doing now? Like it's now what 2025, right? A few years on, how's the business evolved and developed?
Yeah, let's start spicy. Because I'm going to guess a number of you, when you heard Josh say breach and attack simulation, you rolled your eyes. And rightfully so. From an investor market perspective, it's been the vertical has been a complete disappointment. From a customer perspective, I hear over and over again from customers who are disappointed with what they get for breach and attack simulation. And it's not that it's all bad, but it fundamentally it's even in the name, it connotes the wrong thing. So most all of the vendors but us, and I'm going to prove why that's a true statement, in a good and a bad way, all do effectively the same thing. They have agents. The agents can play ping pong with themselves with PCAPs, and then they can run local scripts. Well, that's not breach and attack simulation. That's GRC++. You are just making it easier for me to check simple technical controls and to continue to see if there's configuration drift in my environment. Now, those things have value, but that's not an attack. An attack is something that is state-based, right? You all know MITRE ATT&CK. MITRE ATT&CK gets abused by these kinds of vendors because they turn it into a bingo card. Look at how many like boxes I can fill in. Well, that's not how an attack works, right? And here's why that matters. So the way I describe the MITRE ATT&CK framework is it's like a periodic table. The same way that we can describe the physical world with different atomic elements is the same way that MITRE ATT&CK is able to describe the threat. These procedural elements, but just like the real world, I mean, hydrogen and oxygen, if I test them at the Bass solution, well, quote Bruce Lee, when the attacker shows up as water, why am I not surprised that that didn't work? And the reason for that is because attacks are state-based, right? If I steal credentials, what I look like on host and what I look like on the network are going to be different because I'm in a different state and I can do a different thing. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework tied into the periodic table is the ability to describe the chemical equation, which the order and the state matters to the ultimate outcome. It's either I get a fizzle or I get an explosion.
Yep.
And that's what you need to be able to replicate and what BAS tools don't do. Back to when I launched this in 2017 and 18, I thought I was the first person doing an idea. And suddenly as I'm going through and raising money, folks are like, oh, Gartner says and Forrester says you are in breach and attack simulation. I'm like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And I go and I do the research and I read the marketing for all these places and it all reads like what I do, except they don't do it. Now, here's the bad news. So again, I'm a very honest, transparent guy. I built what was, and going back to the target situation, I built a red team tool. We actually build just-in-time compiled to your specification from scratch, not neutered, defanged malware, from scratch, your own just-in-time compiled post-access malware. That sounds great. If you're a red teamer, that's actually pretty helpful and useful because what I did is I decomposed the post-access space into two axes. If you look at post-access malware, it needs to talk and do things on a host. Why just turn those into Legos? And like Legos, when I build something, it works with all the other Legos. And that's how you're able to exponentially extend your own arsenal. So while that sounds cool to the nerds on the webcast here, there is zero market for that idea. Red teaming is $3 billion made up of people. The few places that are lucky enough to have an internal red team of operators, and then most of them have to outsource and contract a consultancy to do the red teaming. That's $3 billion of people with almost $0 in budget for tools. And so I built a tool for a product I built a product for a market that didn't exist. And so I had to start pivoting from where the breach and attack simulation vendors had built something that was okay enough, but could be sold directly to a blue team because press button and sit back and get pretty colors. And it's like, well, I'm getting colors.
Yep.
Mine didn't do that. That's not where we started. We started over here in the red team realistic space. And that made it, again, it was a market that didn't exist. Like most red teaming, it requires thought. You have to think about it and you have to do some work. And we made some other mistakes along that way. So I've already showed you how we're different. And again, this was in a bad way because I literally built something that only a few people were really able to use. The way I described it is where we were at originally, we were Radio Shack. Look what happened to Radio Shack. So we needed to pivot it and be like Best Buy. how do I take what my special sauce is here at Scythe and still having that realism, but making it a lot easier to present, so anybody with a security use case requirement, which of course blue teams have the most prominent security use case requirements, but other folks do in organizations as well, just turn it into something that's simple where I can hey, I can run tests where I can just kick off threats. So we have a threat catalog, you just click a button and it already has all of the logic built in for you. And then we include a threat intelligence service. So all customers get monthly updates, and then customers that pay more get vertical specific updates. So if you're in finance and in banking in a particular geography, when those latest campaigns come out, we'll do all the work for you in analysis, which takes 100, 200 hours of work, and turn that into a logic that you can now just one button click do it. The other thing that we can do is hygiene testing. So that's the threat informed basis that everybody is pretty much understands today. But that isn't the only way to look at your enterprise portfolio. So what am I getting for what I got? Which isn't just tech, by the way, it's also the people. So when I'm looking at the preventative and detective controls, what's working to stop, what's working, and how long does it take for the telemetry and the personal response, which is where your SOC or MSSP comes in. And so we came up with this idea called hygiene testing, which is instead of the threat informed basis, how do I lump together all of the potential behaviors that I can en masse run against different controls and really now be able to start to quantify that. And then that same thing ties in with where we integrate with vulnerability management, because the problem with vulnerability management is it's really hard to understand, and KEVs and EPSS, the exploit predictability scoring system, have done a good job of kind of giving us some idea into how much something's used out there, but it's still an inexact science. What you can control is the internal stuff. But with vulnerabilities, it's mostly a compliance exercise. People do vulnerability management because they have to, not because they're really focused on security. I'm just doing whack-a-mole with whatever looks the hardest, CVSS score, and I'm gone. Well, and then I run the list again, I run the scanner again, and the list is the same size because you're never going to run out of vulnerabilities in your enterprise. But that's not what matters, right? It's what matters to you. A low-ranking vulnerability can absolutely destroy your organization. That's the level of impact that you want to do. So we've come up with a way to integrate with the vulnerability management scanners, and now you can run these hygiene or threat-informed, again, tailored and customizable to you, the tests that you want to really be able to prioritize that risk that's your risk, not just a generic risk that's being governed out of Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for the context and for the background and the history on BAS itself. Just on the final point, so do you have to do the hygiene testing to then understand the kind of vulnerability prioritization that you're talking about that plugs into the scanners that most companies will have on 3-year contracts, etc., right? But I get the hygiene side as well. And also, sorry, second part to that question is, do you need the people from Scythe to help run the hygiene tests, or is it pure platform play?
That, Josh, I think that's a better question. Yeah. So again, going back to the best buy approach, we wanted to make a tool where you don't need us, right? Our job is to be the tool developer. We want to set it up so that the workflows and all of those elements from customer support, installation to execution, and then again, like I talked about with the threat intelligence updates, you just have to sit back and let the tool do the work, but you get to drive what that is. If you're a power user, there's more customization than you could have ever seen in any of these kinds of tools for you. And if you're not, one button click will get you that ability to do all of that. The integrations are just basically point it to your server and it'll pull the information. That's where, and you can customize the integrations, but the ones out of the box, I mean, they work with the SIMs, the EDRs, you name it. They can integrate it with you, because what our tool is doing is driving the threat signal. Again, you decide what the tool does. The tool doesn't just do this on its own. You just basically connect it in and then go, now do what I want you to do. And that's driving that signal that starts to get you. And the more you can do this is why the continuous nature is valuable. That's where you get the benefits of configuration drift, like the other BAS tools, but also is keeping your risk current with what's happening. And so the Scythe server has the essentially the full logic and actions and everything that happens. So if we steal credentials, you see those credentials. If the tool steals keylogger, screenshots, all of that, you have audited evidence of what happened and a full accounting of that. But the problem, of course, is that doesn't matter. That's just what happened. What matters is, where can I get the understanding of what I'm going to do about it, right? How do I actually What did my sim see or not see? What did my EDR stop or not stop, or see or not stop see? And so what we've done is, with integrating with those, you have the full of everything, and it'll automatically work with both of those, and it'll pull and show you both in Scythe and in that tool itself what you did versus what you didn't, and you have it in both places to be able to plan and work all of that with.
Do you find that, I'm just thinking then, like I'm always like a couple of steps ahead trying to think, okay, then if that, then this, and if so what, etc. Like, is there then an issue with like the subjectiveness of skill levels of people that use your platform and the tool? Like if they have to create the inputs, and if even though it's all logic built already, like what if I don't know what to set up or how to set it up, if you get where I'm going?
Yeah, no, I mean, we help with installation. We provide, in fact, this is what I recommend for everybody on here, whether you are interested in our tool or not. We do free monthly workshops.
Okay.
And we also, in those workshops, we're not just showing our tool. We'll be teaching detection engineering, how to write Sigma, how to run some of the other free command and control tools to being able to do this. We'll teach you Atomic Red Team, which is where I recommend everybody start in this space. And I think that's probably the first point I would start with, because it kind of leads to your question. Most organizations and most people are not red teamers. It's a very niche industry. And so don't get hung up that you don't have a red team. You don't need a red team. You need a red capability. Now, if you have a red team, you can do more. But to get started and to help your organization truly understand risk in an easy way, a red capability is Atomic Red Team. It's exactly like what it is in the name. It's the ability for anybody to just type a command and you'll get a, batch of a couple of commands to execute a technique. You're now off to the races. Now, is that going to give you the depth that you eventually want to go? Again, red teams exist for a reason. No, but now you've started. And once you start there, you're starting to get an understanding and process maturity of how to do these kinds of risk assessments and management. You're getting driving signal in the environment, and you can start to grow that. So the point, going back to the workshops, we'll teach you that whole gamut, from how to get started to how to do more complicated free tools, how our tool works, all in a range environment. So this is real stuff, and you're going to be learning red, blue, purple, all of it.
I love it. I love it. Bryson, just to finish then, because I appreciate you're a busy man and your time is valuable. What does 2025 look like for you guys? What's the plan? What's the outcomes, the goals? What does good look like by December?
I got to think what I'm willing to share. I think the biggest things are going to be, in that product roadmap. I think one thing that would be exciting for the technical folks that are out there is we're going to be releasing a free tool that allows you to manage the process of assessments. So whether you're using our tool or not, this tool will let you track the specific procedures. What did you see? What did you do? All of that, and that helps you build up the stuff over time. For the folks who become customers, that will automatically integrate and pull that data from you. So manual work versus automated, of course, being the difference in cost, but that's a free tool we're going to be releasing. The hygiene and exposure testing is going to be coming out and improving. And I mean, again, it's really just continuing to march along that path of being a Best Buy, where it's easier and easier to do even more fun things. And then, of course, the opportunity will always be there for the expert users, from going back to our roots, that you can dig in. So you're not just getting a Mac experience. There's Linux there too.
I love it. Bryson, thank you very much for joining us today. Good luck for 2025 to you and the team. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on board, Josh.